Hi everyone. Today we will start a new lecture in architecture engineering. Let us dive in and understand first what is the initiation of architect engineer or the architect engineer who takes spline or who study architecture. We need to understand the real meaning of architect engineer in the discipline of architecture engineering, also in the discipline of architecture itself as a purely architecture, also in discipline of building designing and building formation. If we go some time back ago, actually, some time back ago, to understand history, or we take lesson from history to understand the meaning of where it comes the roots of architect. Actually, the root of the word architect breaks down from into two parts, chef and master, which equal to archi, and tecton. Archi means master or chef, and tecton meaning builder. Archi and tecton actually comes from ancient Greek language, which is almost 3000 BC ago. So it's originated from far back ago, 3000 BC, the word from Greek languages. Okay. Later, the name or the word of architectus carried the same meaning. It has the same meaning, but was in ancient Roman civilization. Okay. As its evidence of the oldest surviving writings for the profession authorized by Vitruvius. Actually, this guy or this name we need to focus on because he should be the father of Vitruvius is the father of architecture and the main theorist of architecture engineering. Later in the Middle Ages, the word largely filled out to use as replaced with others such as masters or masons. So the meaning of this slide that architecture or architect engineer, it is two main words, archi, which means master and chef, tecton, which means builder. This word it comes originated, as we said, from Greek language 3000 BC ago. Later, the architecton converted to architectus in Roman ancient civilization, which is the first word mentioned in Vitruvius writings around 2500 BC. So the word architect actually was rediscovered. There is rediscover of the word from Vitruvius text in 1415 in Italy. This rediscovery helped forward the Renaissance and the craze of the old things from ancient Rome, including its style of building. So, this ancient Roman style was a stark contrast from the Gothic building in the vogue and what builders of the time were familiar with designing and building. So the word rediscovered again, rediscover. But actually, if we think more deeply, Vitruvius wrote in Latin, the language which used by Vitruvius to write his book in architecture, it was in Latin language, which is only most highly educated and scholarly people in Italy could read. المشكلة الأساسية إن كانت كتابات فيتروفيوس actually كانت باللغة اللاتينية which you need more high educated person to understand. Not everyone in that time know Latin, especially non-educated people. So this present actually a main problem, trouble to people who has the power and money who wanted to build or who wanted the building to be done in the new style, but whose builders couldn't read about it. So the main obstacles to build that the design or the theory was written in Latin. So the authority which has the money, have the money and have the power to build, they need new builders. They need some people to understand what's meant by Vitruvius writings and what meant by Vitruvius designing ideas and the new architecture principles. So it cannot be found these builders easily because who understand the writings actually it should be more educated. Even their disciplines may be not architecture, but they can read. So, what was the solution? One solution emerged from. So, a new solution initially came from what? Came the form of scholars who can read Vitruvius teaching. Some people or some scholars, some student can read Vitruvius teaching and directed masters and builder on it. Since these scholars became the authority in the building style coming into fashion at the same time, the word architect. So here the new architect word appears, returned into use. It started the continuation that linked the word to design. So I have Vitruvius book. We get new students who can read Latin. Okay, they try to teach builders from design. So I get from design plus architect plus builder. Okay, so this was the main solution. I have a transition connection. I have interface person between the design and between the building. So for this point, it comes the architect. The first use of the word actually architect by the English speaking world, it was in 1563. The main word of architect, it can be used in generally in this that time. And the evidence of the master builder root is plainly seen in a dictionary. We saw this in a very dictionary or a very academic definition in 1755. But actually they give two different or two similar definition for architect and the builder. They said that the architect will be a conservator of a building and also a builder. But the builder he also that he can build, but also he's an architect. So there is was mixing between the architect who can design and manage and plan, and also the builder who can build without knowing or without or with perceiving the designing criteria. Again, similar definition emerged or used the same word in 1800, not until 1913 in some dictionary as able to find distinct separation between the architect and the builder. Here, in this time, we try to find different of the meaning between the architect as a person and the builder as another person. Okay, so in that time, a new definition came. So I have now architect and I have a builder, and I have very precisely definition can make differentiate in both. So the main definition that time in 20th century that the architect, a person skilled in the art of buildings, one who can understand architecture or make it to his occupation from plans, design of building, and superintended. It means supervising the artificers employed to build. He can manage, he can supervise people to build. But the builder, what is a builder? Who is a builder? One who can build or builds. One whose occupation is to build. The main occupation is to build as a carpenter, and the builder came like a mason. Mason on what? Carpenter or a mason in the practice of civil and architecture engineering or civil and architecture practice. The builder comes between the architect who designed the work and the artisans who executed. So in this time now, I reach to from 3000 BC to 1930. I reach to the final definition of who's architect and who the builder. So now I can understand what is the meaning of architect engineer. Okay, so let us have another disciplines to be understood or another subject to be understood. What is the theory? Actually, what is the theory in architecture? Or what is the architectural theory? There is a big difference between architecture theory and history of architecture. Actually, the word theory derives from the Greek theorium, which means to look. So theory word it's actually derived from another root of word. It means to look in its terms of looking at. From this one also came theater stage. The theater stage we call it theater because of we perceiving something, which may explain something. Sometimes theory is used to sometimes not completely resembling real. You don't know what is the output from theory. It may be real or not. Even the verb theorize means in English to perceive, to understand for something. So this is the main meaning of theory in general. Once we understand what is the meaning of architect, engineer, architect, okay, theory, now you have to understand what is the meaning of architectural theory. النظريات المعمارية المختلفة اللي بتشكل مفهوم الهندسة المعمارية وبتشكل مفهوم العمارة. The academic definition of architecture theory means is the act of thinking. I'm thinking about something, discussing and writing about architecture. So this is the final academic definition about architecture theory in general. Architecture theory is the act of thinking, discussing, and writing about architecture. So in that time in 1930, we need a new definition. New definition. Architecture is the both process. It's both of the process and product or producing of planning, designing. It's a planning, designing, and constructing building or any other structure, not only building. In that time, it can make also, I need to let you understand because of these times that the architecture who is taking care to build any structure, even bridges, even canals, even domes, even cathedral. So it was a combination of construction of building and structure. Architecture work in the material form of building to formation, building formation, the form of building are often perceived as a cultural symbols as work of art. It was combined that architecture, as they said, architecture is the mother of all arts, mother of all arts. It combined that or linked that the architecture is a type of art at that time. So we can understand that architecture is not purely practical discipline. It is not a practical one, actually. Every design decision is or thought sometimes something that has to be decided based on a group of values or factors or influences that come from several sources such as history is a constraint of architecture, society, economy, and other many circumstances. Okay, so in that time, we understand that architecture is not a purely systematic or a purely practical discipline because, as we said in last slide, it is something like linked to art. The first theory in architecture we can found it from Mr. Vitruvius. The earliest surviving written work in the subject of architecture actually it was De Architectura. De Architectura. Okay. De Architectura, it was the first book written in architecture by the Roman architect Vitruvius in the early first century. Vitruvius, he created one triangle and he put the main three dominant aspect or the main three dominant values or the main three dominant constraints about architecture. He said architecture has three main aspects, utilitas, ventus, and firmitas. According to Vitruvius, a good building should satisfy the three principle. So this maybe can be the main three principle of Vitruvius of the architectural in the old ages. Firmitas, utilitas, venustas. The durability, which firmness, utility, which we will go to convert it to function, commodity, and beauty of the building. But we focus actually about architectural theory. So how it come theory, or how they could configure theory, or how Vitruvius can found the theory in architecture. Vitruvius, he make an triangle, okay, big triangle, and started to convert it to four ones. He said that the architect will be on the top. Architect will be on the top, which we also give. Now you know the definition of architect. And architecture will be down and in the left. In the right, you will find influences. And we said that influences may be spirit of the age, culture, economy, politics, anything influence your building. In between all these triangles, you will find another big architecture of theory of architecture, big triangle, which will let you to perceive the theory of architecture. So I have one of architecture, second architecture, and third influences. It all these combination, it will give you theory of architecture. Now we understand architect, what meant by theory, what meant by architecture theory, okay? But there is two different subject all architecture engineering study, which is theory of architecture, okay, and architecture history. We need to understand what is the difference between both this one and this one. Actually, there is a difference between history and theory. Vitruvius actually emphasized on the importance of history as a source of knowledge. So Vitruvius said that the history of architecture, it's just a bank idea or source of knowledge for the architect, for the designer. The distinction between the history and the theory of architecture didn't emerge actually until the 18th century. So this is a new topic. It's 200 almost ago, but it's a new topic. It is impossible to discuss meaningfully the building of the past without discussing the ideals of those who built them, just as it is impossible to discuss the ideals of architects without reference to the structure they design. So it linked between the designer and the architect. So you have to understand the theory of architecture, you have to understand the history and the back dated and old dated, which perceive or which led to understand the new theories of architecture. Another expression, architecture engineering. Now we converted from architecture engineer to theory to history to architecture theory. But now I have new in the modern ages, or in 20th century, I have another discipline which is called architectural engineering. الهندسة المعمارية. Actually, it is an engineering discipline. It is a discipline from engineering that deals with the technological aspect. It has a technological aspect and multidisciplinary approaches of planning, designing, construction, and operation of the building, such as analysis. It used analysis and integrated designs, the integration of design of the environmental system. So, architect engineering is a science. It converted to the science of designing building and other physical structures. Okay, so the main concept of architecture engineering nowadays, it is a pure science of designing building and other physical structure. But because of the architecture has the power of have the history of art, it takes combination of the definition between architecture engineering and architecture itself. But if you speak precisely about architecture engineering, it is a pure science of designing a building. Even in new modern college, it's called building engineering. How to create building in engineering discipline. So the main definition of architecture engineering, actually it can be with Le Corbusier. We will speak more about this architect later. Okay, Le Corbusier, he is associated with the main definition of that a house is a machine for living in. Actually, this definition came with the industrial revolution in 20th century, And Le Corbusier said that the building not like before. It is not an artifact, or it is not a ornamental or decorative building. It's a machine just for living. The purpose of the house to live, which have to be more functional to the needs of living. Also, Le Corbusier, he made confusion about this one. Actually, as we said, it was with the Industrial Revolution. So when they ask him what you meant, or what is the meaning of a house is a machine to live in, he said a chair, it's a machine to sit in. So this is his answer. So I need to let you to understand that the main answer about architecture engineering is that it's come to with machine era in 20th century after industrial revolution. So Le Corbusier, he's supposed to be the father of architectural engineering. He converts architecture to pure architectural engineering. Thanks for now. If you don't know, now you know. Let us meet another lecture.